I think it's the most divisive time ever, but people I feel like always say that.
Yeah.
Would you say right now going on 2025, the most divided we've been?
I don't think so. I think because we just came off of a period of what I feel like was real unity for a moment. Like during the election, I felt like there was more unity in this country than I had ever experienced before. And, I was a post 9/11 baby. I feel like I didn't experience like my parents, talk about what the world was like after 9/11, where the entire country came together and it felt like there was this whole, unified American spirit. And maybe it's because of the bubble that I was in terms of my values and the show that I do, but it felt very unified in November of like everybody who would cross the aisle to vote for Trump, everybody who was excited about where the country was going. It felt like it was very positive. And then actually the first episode that I did on my show kind of speaks to what you're talking about now, which was I feel like that started to crumble. So I think that there's still some like lingering pieces of unity, but I feel like the right were just bad winners in general. And I feel like there's a lot of divisiveness within the right wing in general. I think the left is also kind of imploding on itself because they don't know what's going on. So I'm just speaking purely politically. So I think there's a lot of confusion, but I think there was far more division in like a 2020 than there is now. That felt like hostile division. This feels like confused chaos.
See, I've seen those charts, the polls that show like the unity throughout the 90s, and then it just diverges in the last like 3 or 4 years. And now, I think, according to the polls, it is the most divisive we've ever been in history. And it seems like the right's more right and the left is more left.
Yeah.
There's fewer people in the middle.
And it's interesting, and I wonder if that's because people have now felt like they need to be in a party, like the middle is no longer a common ground like place to be. Like I feel like that's happened on both the right and the left, where the right has pointed fingers and said like you can't be a centrist, you can't be an independent, you need to be over here, where the left has kind of done the same thing of if you step out of line then you're canceled. So I think a lot of people have just become more and more partisan, which has probably added to that division. And again, I think that in terms of both parties you have that additional layer of it being, so maybe you are right in terms of like it's like there's broader division, and then within each like segment of our like political landscape, there also feels like a lot of division.
I think it's almost echo chambers online that the algorithms really promote the extremes.
For sure.
And like the more outrageous you are, like I could tell some people purposely will like toe the line. And they do it intentionally to get a reaction, and just you get one side just losing their mind. But that engagement just like drives it to the top. And then the people that feed into that now like have a direction. They could either go down that and it becomes the echo chamber.
And there's this whole conversation about like whether monetizing X was a good idea because of that, because now you have like the engagement baiters, whether it's just the like, what do you think about that? Like they post some like ridiculous story with a ridiculous question, or it's the towing the line and just basically being a firebrand. And I think Matt Walsh was tweeting about this just a couple of days ago of saying that he wishes that it wasn't monetized because it's made the platform just so messy, and I think he believes that it's hurt the political landscape in a lot of ways. But I think that it has changed incentives for sure, especially on that platform. But yeah.
What I find interesting is that the conflict and the divisiveness, I think, is now emerging in a way of like people don't even want to have conversations. And I've noticed this. I'm kind of outing myself early here. But like somewhat recently, I'm not going to say when, I matched with a woman on Hinge.
Okay.
And her message to me was, I just found you online. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, what did you see? And she's like, well, I think that you're one of those like right wing, like I've seen your, And I'm like, I looked at my Instagram because she found my Instagram. And I think what she was referring to is that I asked Jordan Peterson what his favorite books were.
That's insane.
Because like, she saw that I was associated with Jordan Peterson, and that was too much for her.
Okay, so this is another part of divisiveness, is that men and women are more divided than ever. So now that I'm like walking through all of this, I think where I was looking at it through the lens of just like, oh, the right and the left. I think when you look at our society, we are probably, and I don't know if this is what that, polling was looking at, but so now we've already kind of gone through these other places that are more divided, but like men and women ideologically, we're now more divided than ever. Like women are moving farther to the left, men are increasingly moving to the right, but it's not even like you're out here being some like crazy right-wing extremist, but just because you associated with Jordan Peterson or you interviewed Ben Shapiro, it's like, oh, it's just, and it's, I think that male-female division is playing a much bigger role than a lot of people are talking about.
It's under the interview with David Pakman. Or Anna.
Yeah, or like Destiny or
Destiny.
Hassan, like anybody. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But it doesn't matter. It's like if you're just in rooms with certain people, they won't even ask you questions. They just make assumptions.
For sure.
And I find that really interesting also when you look at like Anna Kasparian, how she's now been, some people think, sympathizing with the right a little bit more. And then everyone's disliking this, which is so weird. Some people on the right are a little receptive to it. Everyone on the left thinks she's like a traitor. A lot of people on the right are like, well, you still said all of these things a couple years ago, and for that, we're not going to forgive you.
And that's the finger wagging, which is so annoying to me, because if somebody is being willing to cross party lines for the sake of, and I don't look at her as grifting at all, but truly for the sake of understanding, of wanting the world to be better, of really trying to find common ground, it's like, who are we then to point fingers and say, oh, I'm not going to forgive you for this. I'm not forgetting. It's like all the COVID stuff of, people who were late to the game on masks and lockdowns or vaccines or whatever it might be, who came out of the fog 3 years later and went, oh my God, this destroyed our economy. This destroyed young people and their development. This created a mental health crisis. I can't believe that I engaged in this, that I supported it. And you have people on the right who wag their, we're not forgiving or forgetting. We're never letting you move on. I'm like, they're human beings. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody does things that they regret or thinks things that they regret now. They've changed their minds about things. We're never going to move forward and have actual progress if you can't come to the table and have a conversation. So I think it's a problem on both sides for sure. The right is definitely better at it, but there are still those people that are so, maybe it's the right that I engage with.
Did you see Chris Cuomo and PBD, how PBD was trying to invite Chris to be like a regular paid talent on the show? And like the comments were insane.
Sure.
How they, like, every time he appeared, all of the top comments, thousands of likes. How could you bring this person on your show? How could you be platforming this person? I'm like, I didn't think that this was, going to be this big of an issue. And I congratulated PBD. I'm like, I love this idea. He's like, oh, thank you. I'm like, why did you do it? He's like, well, I want to connect both sides. And I'm like,
good impression.
I was like, yeah, that's great. I love that. And but yeah, the people don't like it.
Yeah, so. I think that also depends on who your audience is and who the base is. Like, it would kind of make sense in terms of PBD's audience that they might not be interested in that. Whereas I think my audience that is already very ideologically diverse, which is something that I'm super proud of and I think is very, very special. Like, whenever I talk about things that, or talk about individuals or people that might not be completely partisan or be on, the other side, they're very receptive to it because it's like, no, this is about common ground. It is about trying to move forward in a positive, productive way. And so I think it's just encouraging people to lean into that, which is hard. It's hard to sit across from somebody who thinks differently than you and have humility and grace and try to find understanding. It is hard for a lot of people to forgive and forget when their lives were completely changed by something that was so destructive and so awful. But I think you can't live in the past. You're never going to move forward from that. It's just kind of a...
Yeah. Do you think you can change your mind in public anymore? And if so, how do you do it?
Oh, gosh. It's really, really hard because it does require a lot of humility. It's hard as an individual, just in general, without, having any kind of public platform to change your mind and accept responsibility and let people know that you're changing your mind. That's just hard in your personal life regardless. But it's incredibly hard in this media landscape that moves so quickly and where people are so judgmental and they just clip things. So I think it's definitely harder, and it makes me respect the people like Anna who are able to do that, who are able, even just like dipping their toe and, saying maybe I thought incorrectly about this, or maybe my mind is changing. It's really, really hard. Like I look at the Nicole Shanahans and the Tulsi Gabbards of the world. I mean, like, Tulsi is the prime example of this, who was literally put on no-fly lists because of her path of changing her mind. She was villainized by her own people, by her own party and her community. And I think one of the reasons why people love her so much now, especially on the right, is because she took all of that in stride. She went through all of it with grace. She never wavered. And that's incredibly, incredibly hard to do. And I think that's why there are so few examples of that. If you talk to Nicole Shanahan, what she and her family went through, her entire foundation basically being taken away from her, I mean, it was just insane. And I think when you are somebody with that much influence and that much, you could say power or just, I guess influence is the best word. It just becomes increasingly difficult. And I think it requires a lot of fortitude. So, yeah.